So we were standing on the rocky bank of the Truckee River between Lake Tahoe and Reno, Nevada. We was my new girlfriend, Mary, her 9-year-old daughter, Sky. And there were a few things going on in that moment. Both of us, both me and Mary and me and Sky had recently fallen like head over heels in love. And I would not have been surprised to see like cartoon hearts around our heads when we glanced up. But worlds were colliding also. I was in my 30s, and I was really used to being single. I worked at a desk job, and I dreamed all day of being outside, like big days outside and getting close to physical and metaphorical edges. Mary had just had a pretty rough patch, and her dreams were about having a loving family, being secure, being safe. So I pushed the canoe off, and I hopped in and started paddling. And I'd been driving up and down the roads in Reno, and I scouted this area, and I knew that it was free of a couple major hazards that water can have. It didn't have white water, so it was unlikely to have whirlpools and vortices and stuff. And it also didn't have strainers, which are like anything that water flows through that people can't, where you could get trapped. So I told Mary and Sky that our probability of death was low and adventure was high. So we were paddling along, and it was awesome. We had some snacks, and we were seeing natural stuff and pointing it out and chit-chatting, and everybody was gleaming, and it was really fun. And then we hit a rock. Under the water, I never saw it, and the boat tipped, and we were swimming in this freezing cold water. I looked around, and I looked up, and I saw that the nearest road was a busy highway, and it was way up a hillside. I looked downstream, and I saw the canoe and the paddles separately floating away. And I saw Mary and Skylar floating in their life jackets and just starting to grab each other's hands. So I felt confident that it was going to be challenging, but they were going to get out of the river. But I thought we were going to be very challenged if we didn't have the boat. So I went after the boat. And it took a while to get to it, and it took a lot longer to get back because the time going downstream is a lot faster than coming up. So I popped out in a clearing, and Mary's first question to me was, what kind of person leaves a child floating in a river to go after a canoe? And I didn't know what to say. And so I said some stuff about risk management and the canoe. And she dropped it and asked me what I was going to do to get us out of there safely. And the truth was, I didn't know. When I had canoed before, it was normal to tip over, and you'd grab a kid and swim to the shore. But it was never anywhere where the water was this cold or this remote. And I made something up. I said, we were sitting on the canoe seats. If we kneel in the bottom, it'll lower our center of gravity. We'll be much less likely to tip, and it will be safer. And so that had to pass for an answer, and we hopped back in the canoe and started paddling. And the truth was, I really, really wanted these relationships to work, and I wanted to be able to adventure together. So I was trying my absolute hardest to paddle away from danger and look really closely and do everything I could to keep us safe. But we didn't go very far before we hit another rock, and we didn't tip, but we added a few bruises to the collection when we skittered across the boat, and it did not seem good. And so I had this memory of playing tip the canoe with my friends, and I had another plan. So I climbed out of the boat, and I got on the back of it, and I held the very back with my hands and put my feet up on the sides. And this did two things for us. It made the boat super light, so it was very unlikely to tip. It also made it really easy for me to guide it when we were around rocks. I could just brace myself against the rocks and get the boat in position, and then we could go through. So it was working super well, and we were kind of cruising along actually for about half an hour, but then I realized I was getting really cold, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to think as clearly or quickly. And then when I wanted to do stuff, I wouldn't have the coordination or the power to move efficiently anymore. So I mentioned that I was worried about that, and we talked about stopping and warming up, but the sun was already pretty low in the sky, and I knew we didn't want to be out there at night. So we just kept going, and we came around a bend, and ahead in the distance there was this little house on the riverbank, and it was like a white house with a white picket fence and a little fishing dock. And Mary said, "Great, we can stop and ask for help." And I climbed into the canoe because I was so cold, and I explained that it wasn't possible for me to stop and ask for help. I just wasn't the kind of person that would show up on someone's doorstep and say I needed help. And I explained that I was planning to go to the wilderness, and how would I know I could handle the wilderness if I stopped and asked for help when I wasn't there? And Mary asked me, "So you're handling this?" And she had a point. And I could see that she wasn't having any fun, and I could see that Skylar wasn't having any fun. But I also know something about myself, and it's that I really need to be stubborn when I'm asked to do something that isn't me, because I can't give pieces of myself away. And so I was just completely stuck, and I don't think the hypothermia was helping, and I was just sitting there quietly. And I still don't know how the decision got made, and I think it was in my arms, but I paddled on the side of the canoe and I turned it, and we pulled up to the dock. And it seemed like a good decision because as I went to tie the canoe to the dock, I couldn't remember how to tie the knot, and then I struggled to move my body once I did remember, and tying that knot is something I do. So we knocked on the door, and I was really surprised not to be shamed by the people who lived in the house, and they were actually slightly complimentary. They said they normally get fugitives from the river, but it's normally in the summer. They'd never had someone show up in May before, and so they said we were very intrepid. And they brought out hot chocolate and towels, and they grabbed their keys and started driving me to one of our cars so we could start the process of getting all our stuff home. And we were safely out of that situation. And I really wish that I could say that a switch flipped that day, and I started, that I quieted the noise of my adventuring neurons singing to each other and started making good partner in a family decisions. But that's not even close to true. What did happen was that it was the first time I made a good decision like that, and there were a lot of other ones that I've made that have been close, and then a lot of wrong ones that I've made where the best thing I could do was just try to fix it after I realized that I'd messed up. And we've made it a long way as a family with me doing that, and I'm proud of that. Thank you.